every 2 weeks we have a company meeting, and we always have different topics I'm talking about. For example, when I went to a trip to new destinations, I explained what I saw, what was good, what was bad, what's the problem. I'm really honest about that. I talk about the finances of the company. When we struggle, I tell people why we struggle, what's the problem. And I always encourage the people to ask questions.
Welcome to How I Made It in Marketing from Marketing Sherpa. We scour pitches from hundreds of creative leaders and uncover specific examples. Not just trending ideas or buzzword-laden schmaltz. Real-world examples to help you transform yourself as a marketer. Now, here's your host, the Senior Director of Content and Marketing at Marketing Sherpa, Daniel Burstein, to tell you about today's guest.
Don't give up quite yet. Whatever it is you're working on and struggling with, don't pivot too soon. Make sure you give it enough time to let it work. For as my next guest explains, resilience pays out. Here to share the story of how he grew his company's YouTube channel from 0 to 100,000 subscribers, along with many more lesson-filled stories, is Frank Spitzer, the CEO of Pelecanus. Thanks for joining me, Frank.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
So let's take a quick look at your background. You were a first lieutenant and platoon leader in the infantry corps of the Swiss Army. You spent 20 years in finance, including being an operations officer at Zurich Scudder Investments and a structurer at Credit Suisse. And 8 years ago, you founded Pelecanus. So Pelecanus right now, I think most recent numbers, $250,000 in revenue for the year. And Frank has 4 employees that report to him, along with 4 freelancers and interns. So, Frank, give us a sense. What is your day like as CEO?
Well, usually I get up early in the morning, around 6 o'clock. I wake up without the alarm, which is very nice. I walk down the stairs and my day starts. And then I work all day, and evening is usually open-end. I usually work between 60 to 90 hours a week, so also the weekends. This is at the office. When I travel, because I run a travel agency or a travel operator, then hours go up.
So you talk about all the fun, beautiful things to do in Colombia. Do you have time to do any of them? It sounds like you don't.
Yeah, actually, I do a lot. I travel a lot around Colombia, and that's awesome. But I do not really have the tourist experience because I'm rushing everywhere. I run from A to B to C, and I drive everywhere by car, and I see the stuff, but to me it's work because I have to talk to the people, have to visit hotels, I have to film everything. Sometimes I have somebody with me helping with filming, but usually I'm a one-man show, and it's tough, those trips, but highly satisfying.
That's awesome. That's part of running a small company. All right, let's take a look at some lessons from your career, some of the things you made. Your first lesson, you said, taking responsibility leads to rewards. And this is a very early formative lesson for you that you still remember today. So you want to tell us about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think this is very important to also give the audience some context, because I grew up in Switzerland, close to Zurich on the countryside, and now I live in Colombia, and the culture is totally different. So here in Switzerland, the goal, the aim is when we grow kids, that they become responsible adults. So education of kids is therefore a little bit different than in many other countries. And I remember I was like 5 or 6 years old and just learned how to ride my little bicycle. And the local bully, he took my bicycle and showed me how the bicycle can run by its own. And unfortunately, the bicycle on its own ran down flowers in a garden of a lady, and I was so scared. So I ran back home, told it to my parents, and they just told me, "Yeah, your problem, solve it." And I was so scared. So my dad, he came with me, took me by the hand, but he said, "Look, I will ring on the door on that lady, but you need to solve the situation and clarify everything." And my mom, she gave me a box of chocolate, and you can imagine. So my dad was there at the entrance with me and rang the bell, and then a lady opened, and I was just crying. And this lady didn't understand what was going on. So she took me into the apartment, and my dad, he waited outside. And finally, I came out with my bicycle and the second box of chocolate. And as a kid, this is such an important lesson that you learn that when you take over responsibility, you actually can get rewarded. And this was very important for my life, because like this, my brain got wired the way that I attack the problems and take over responsibility.
Yeah. Can you think of any example in your career where there was a difficult thing, but you had to take responsibility and it paid off? I mean, I know you previously worked in an industry that the finance industry that has had some issues with that, perhaps, or even in your current industry. Because I know when I've managed people, I hope I took responsibility myself. It's hard for me to say. I sure hope I did. But I know like when you manage people, you can tell like when something goes wrong. There's some people I've managed that it starts with, it's not my fault, and goes from there. And, maybe it wasn't. But then there's other people who just, boom, they fess up, it's this. And then it doesn't get to the, blaming them part or the punishing them. It's great. Now let's just jump in, see what we can learn and fix it. That's why that helps so much. So from your career, can you think of a specific time where you took responsibility or maybe one of your team members did and what you did from there?
Well, I would say this is rolled over in many situations, many stations of my life. Responsibility was also a big part. Also in the army. Anyway, because when you have subordinates that do something wrong, make mistakes or whatever, you're the head, you're the team leader, and finally you have to take over responsibility because you have been responsible for the training, for the supervision, and whenever something is going on and your supervisor arrives, then it's your responsibility you have to face. And I think the army was a really good school to really get more deep into these leadership principles.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too, because not only personal responsibility as a leader, you got to take responsibility for your team. And I'm sure as CEO, if something goes wrong for a customer, you can't just blame one of your employees, right? You got to take responsibility and make it right for them. Here's another lesson. You say resilience pays out, and you grew from 0 to 100,000. I think it's actually 104,000 right now, subscribers on your YouTube channel. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, that's actually a great story. And I think it makes a good example for many people to show resilience is so important in life. So we started the YouTube channel in 2018 and growth was really slow. So we never had a viral video, whatever. And we reached 10,000 subscribers only like 6 months ago. And then within the last 6 months, we reached over 100,000 subscribers. And I remember in the first year of the YouTube channel, there only were like 10 views a video or 20 views or 50 views, mostly were my family and friends all over the place. And it was so frustrating. And we were like really shooting so many cool videos and uploading every week. And the needle was not moving, not at all. But I knew we are providing quality content and really valuable information all around Colombia. And we have to maintain this pace and show people that we are here, we have the great information, and it's the best source for everybody who wants to travel to Colombia. And little by little, the numbers increased, but really little by little. And yeah, finally now we are on over 100,000 subscribers, and that's really awesome. And I think they are lucky people. They start something, and whatever they touch, it leads to success. But I think what we did here is just the usual path that is usually valid for normal entrepreneurs. You start and then you maintain and invest for years with all your energy and everything you have. And then one moment in the future, after years of investment and dedication, then it really starts to pay back.
Yeah, that's powerful. Can you think of any specific tactics that worked or didn't work for you on YouTube? I mean, I know some people are like, oh, it's the thumbnail you use, the cover image, the way you write the headline, the description, the hashtag, where you share it all. I mean, people have all these different theories about what worked and didn't work on YouTube. What worked for you? Because what you're saying about resilience paying off, or that again and again, especially when it comes to content marketing, where it's like heads down, focused on quality content. People see these stories, right? They'll hear this story of 104,000 subscribers for you. And if you didn't explain that, they would just see that number and be like, I want to get that. And they don't get it in 3 months and they give up. See that again and again for content. It's kind of like a hockey stick. It's a long, hard slog of quality content for many years and then it takes off. But when they're doing that, a lot of people are experimenting with different, okay, what should I try it this way? Should I try this type of content? Again, should I try this headline, this thumbnail, this image? What should I do? So were there any specific tactics that either worked well for you or didn't work well for you in growing that YouTube channel?
Yeah, so we had a strategy change, and I think that was very crucial. So in the beginning, I don't want it to be in front of the camera. I don't want it to moderate videos, and because I have low profile, I'm really Swiss, and I don't want to be the front man. So when we started, we showed beautiful videos, great editation, with cool music, and wonderful, really cool to show the sites. But in some moment, I realized we are missing something. We are not reaching the emotional basis on the spectators. So we need something that people can connect, and people connect with people. So I realized we need somebody in the videos. We need somebody who presents Colombia to tackle emotions. And I knew right away it cannot be somebody else than me, because I'm the head of the company. I'm the entrepreneur. Everything is my project. So I have to step in front of the camera and start changing the way we film or produce the videos. And in the beginning, it was really tough because I was stumbling. And for my team that was editing the videos, it must have a really difficult work to cut out all the stumbling. But with training and doing more and more videos, I also got better. And this was also a process. In the beginning, a disaster, and then the learning process. And today I can step in front of the camera and I just talk for 5 or 10 minutes without one moment of stumbling. So that's really cool. And I think that was really something that made the difference, that people saw me explaining the stuff, and also that people saw me traveling to all those great destinations in Colombia. And this is how they built up trust in me as a person. And also that, I think that led finally also to an increase in subscribers. All the other tactics, I think there's no magic sauce. Thumbnails are cool to experiment with. We tried. We didn't see a significant change. Also titles and lots of descriptions with keywords and keyword stuffing and doing so much stuff in the description section. We tried a lot. And also I did we did paid promotion for the YouTube channel. And of course the views increased, and then we stopped the paid promotion, and then the views decreased again to the same level than before. So this didn't work. So I would say all those techniques, they might make a difference. We didn't see a difference at all in the statistic when we were crunching the numbers. So to me, everything comes down to consistency, to publish video after video, and this is how you can grow.
That's great, Frank. That's a lot of good information right there. Let's just jump into one of your other lessons. You said embracing honesty can lead to deeper connections, personal growth, and inner peace. So how'd you learn this lesson?
This is, I would say, also something very specific to the Swiss culture, that we're usually very honest and direct. We're very friendly also, but very direct in what we say. And in Colombia, the communication culture is totally different. Not saying the truth is not really lying or regarded as lying in Colombia. It's more part of the communication culture in Colombia. And for everybody is okay. So I can make you a little example. Let's say you will have your 50th birthday the Saturday next week, and you invite me. And me as a Swiss, I will tell you right away, yes, I can make it or I cannot make it, because I know I check my agenda. If you're in Colombia, so let's say I'm Colombian and I already have a trip planned. I will travel to Sydney for 2 months. and I will not be here. And you invite me next week for your birthday. I will tell you, oh, wow, that's awesome. 15 years. I will get some booze and we'll party all night long and we'll have so much fun. So this is a typical response in Colombia. And everybody knows this means nothing. And to me, at the beginning, it was really tough to understand that different culture. I also had lots of conflicts because when I entered Colombia, I started with the MBA in a local university, and I was fighting with all my other student mates all the time. I didn't understand in the beginning. So what I started to do is I told people, look, I'm from Switzerland. I have a different culture, and I'm very honest and straightforward. And like this, everything relaxed. And since then, I found Colombians that also have a similar mindset, that do not like too much the local communication culture, but that they appreciate a very clear and direct communication. For example, all my allies around Colombia, because in all the regions, I have local operators, we developed a relationship of trust and honesty. So different to Colombians or Latins, and within Latins, we are very straightforward and talk just the way stuff is. And this is to me and to them a huge benefit, because we don't lose time and we know right away from the first moment what it is all about.
That's a great example of a cultural shift and choosing not to adapt. And, I've interviewed a lot of people who've, gone to a different market, gone to a different country and, had to figure out, okay, now how do I operate with this within this country? That's a great example of choosing not to adapt. I wonder if you can think of a specific example of something you did for your customers or your audience where you had to make a change to adapt to that local culture. Because I know your blog publishes across 5 languages. You've had 2,000 blog posts across 5 languages. You get 10,000 organic visitors a month. So I'm guessing your target audience is in many different countries. For example, I interviewed Cordula Flugel, the marketing director of TNW, on How I Made It in Marketing. And one of her lessons was market localization is important. And she told the story of how she learned that when Airbnb launches experience product in Africa, right? Different things mean different things in different countries. So can you think of an example of anything you've had to do, like you have such a wide and diverse audience, 5 languages, to localize something to a market?
Yeah, absolutely. So usually my writers, they're all Colombians, because I run a Colombian a Colombian company. So I also want to have Colombian stuff. And all the content we produce, we usually write in Spanish, and then we translate it to different languages. And I do translations to English and to German. And when I usually take a piece in Spanish, in the beginning, I went crazy because there's so much fluff inside. But this is the culture. When you write a Spanish text, you have it very colorful, explaining stuff, and you can write a paragraph without saying nothing, but it's just the language, the culture, the context is right. Because when you write like in English or in German, right to the point, you just write one phrase. This is fine in English and German, but in Spanish, it's just not the way you write and not the way people want to read it. And the Spanish content is very important for us because the Spanish-speaking market, it's 600 million people. It's huge. So we need to have good text, good blog posts. So I was fighting a lot with Anna Maria, that you got to know by email. She's the head of digital marketing in my company. And she finally convinced me and teach me, look, you know a lot of stuff, Frank, but you have to learn that not everything is the way you think in the world. So in the Spanish language, it just works a different way. And I said, yeah, you're right. So let's keep it maybe with 10% less fluff, but we keep it like the way you think it's correct.
I like that 10% less fluff. When I've written in international operations before, there's definitely some complaining from some other languages because they talk about, for example, we'd get a template, right? That the white paper, whatever would appear in, and I'd be able to write. And in another culture, for example, Spanish, it'd be like, well, wait a minute, like anything we write in Spanish is going to be 25% longer than English. We need a template for our language too. We can't stick it into the English, template. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. All right, we just talked about some lessons from the things Frank has built. In just a moment, we'll talk about some lessons from the people he built things with and collaborated with and learned from. That's a great thing we get to do as marketers, as entrepreneurs. We get to build things, but we get to do it with other people and learn from them. But first, I should mention that the How I Made It in Marketing podcast is underwritten by MECLabs Institute, the parent organization of Marketing Sherpa. MECLabs AI's 10 expert assistants and guided headline writing path can help you with every facet of your marketing. It is totally free to use for now. You can just go to meclabsai.com and start using it. That's MECLABSAI.com and start getting artificial intelligence and a patented methodology working for you. All right, Frank, let's talk about first person you collaborated with. And like your other lessons, this starts very early in your career, even before it started. You mentioned dedication shapes an entrepreneurial spirit, and you learned this from Donald Spitzer, who is your father. How'd you learn that?
My dad is my idol. He was a father very early, still when he was studying architecture at the university here in Zurich. And he started working early, not just as an architect, but also like emptying train wagons and laying out carpets in houses because he had to make some money because he already had a family as a young man. And he was an entrepreneur all his life, and he just walked out the door. Today 76 years old, and he's still working full time. So he just went to the construction site to check what the guys are doing, and he still walks up the buildings on the construction site, and the workers there are sometimes very surprised when they hear about his age. And he was not always around because his hours were long. Sometimes he left in the morning before we got up and came back at the night when we already went to bed. And also the weekends he was working. But I think this is, dedication to your job, to your profession. And the beautiful thing is later when I grew up a little bit, we played tennis together. He was a hockey player, so we also played ice hockey in the same team. That was very cool. And he was just always such a balanced person and so dedicated to his profession, really in love with what he was doing. And therefore, I think finally after over 20 years in banking, I also decided to go into entrepreneurship and start my own company.
So it takes dedication. You talked about that. You also mentioned his vision. And so a question for you, as we talked about, you had 20 years in finance there in Switzerland, and you go into starting a company in the travel industry. Do you want to walk us through, like, how did you get the vision? Because it takes dedication. How did you get the vision to launch the company, what it should be? Because, for example, I interviewed Jeff Bradford. He's the president of Dalton Nashville. I interviewed him on the How I Made It Marketing podcast. And one of his lessons was think big. And he talked about how him and his team, they raised $150 million for a symphony hall, which at first that goal seemed unattainable. And that's a perfect example of what it is when you're an entrepreneur, when you're switching industries, when you're, doing something like that. Like it all seems unattainable at first, but you somehow have to have that vision and then execute on it. So can you give us an idea, like how do you, as an entrepreneur, as a company owner, how do you get that vision? How do you shape that vision? How do you figure that out?
Good. I think those 20 years in finance, especially the last years when I was structuring private label funds for the ultra-rich all over the world, I learned so much. And what I found is that it doesn't matter in what industry you're going to. If you do it right, you can become very successful. And being successful, money is a logical part of it. So my goal is not to become rich, but being successful. And then money-wise, I don't have to. It doesn't matter anymore if I spend a little more or a little less. So, but I'm really focused. I have a big vision to become a big player in tourism in Colombia. So when I came to Colombia and entered the market through my MBA at the university, after first semester, I was traveling around the country. And you have to understand the context of Colombia. 20 years ago, the armed groups were still outside the capital, Bogota, on the mountains. So local people couldn't even drive outside of the city because it was too dangerous. You had all those armed FARC members. And when I was in Colombia in 2015, tourism already started to develop, but the service quality was still very, very on a low level. So I was traveling around the country and I saw these beautiful places and just stunning. I traveled all my life like to 60 or 70 countries in total so far. And what I saw in Colombia, the potential they actually have as a country, I never saw that in no other country all over the world. And I knew tourism, that is a huge potential for this country. So finally, I decided to start in tourism. Then I had to decide what type of company I wanted to start. So I was thinking about starting a hotel or a hostel. And finally, I decided starting a tour operator, because as a tour operator, you are actually building a platform. You manage the clients directly, and this will also give you a big potential for growth, because when you manage the clients, then it's very easy to expand on a vertical and horizontal level, because who has the clients has the power. And there was also a shift in the company strategy. I think that makes sense to include it here. In the travel agency, the usual way you work as a tour operator locally, you work as a DMC. It's called a destination management company. So you receive the clients from foreign travel agencies. So in New York, when you go around the corner, you go to a travel agency and then they sell you a standard package, traveling 2 weeks in Colombia, big cities. And when you arrive, then a local tour operator will take over and organize the tour guides and driving and everything, what you do then in Colombia. And I was focused on the luxury market and the German market, but very soon I found out those markets are already gone to 95%, because there's a German guy also in Bogota. He was since 2005 there in Bogota, and all the travel agencies, they work with him, and there's another guy, Swiss guy, and the rest is working with those guys. And I just saw no option to get into this market and to grow the way I wanted. So I changed the strategy, and I said to myself, so what I need to do is I need to acquire the clients directly. And this was also one of the reasons why we started the YouTube channel. So on one side, we started the YouTube channel to change the image of the country, to teach people all over the world that today's Colombia is not only Pablo Escobar and armed groups and everything. And on the other side, to pitch our services. And because Colombia has such a huge potential in tourism and will grow a lot, to me it was clear, if I just will grow with the normal growth rate in tourism, it will be good. Of course, my goal is a little bit more ambitious. The plan is to grow much more than the market. And that's my vision, to use the travel operator company as a platform to grow, to do that. This is why we need the marketing a lot, to acquire all those clients direct way. And then when I have the necessary client base, then I can expand in hotels or accommodation, transportation, everything that is actually related with tourism. Because as I said, if you have the clients, you have the power, and you just need to sell.
That is a great example of both finding an unmet need or want or opportunity, but also understanding the structure of the industry and the marketplace, because that is another key thing. Sometimes there's a reason it's unmet, or sometimes you have to understand how to navigate that. So that's a great example. I know at one point in my career, I found an unmet need in industry, but I didn't understand the structure of the industry. And I mean, that's why I ultimately failed, because, okay, there was already all these contracts locked in and the way it was structured. So, I mean, you could try really hard to change that structure, or you could do like you're doing and find an opportunity within that structure that someone hasn't met. So that's very helpful. All right, let's take a look at another lesson. You said to achieve success, hard work trumps natural talent. And you learned this from Lucas Ramsire back when you were in the Swiss Army. So how'd you learn this from Lucas?
Yeah, so Lucas is probably my best friend here in Switzerland, and I got to know him in officer school in 2000, and then it happened that we have been in the same company. So it was the two platoon leaders, him and me, and then we had the captain and his deputy. and then we became very close friends. And he's such a gifted leader. I never met somebody else that is such a gifted natural leader like him. He enters the room and everybody looks at him and wants to know him, wants to know who's this guy. To me, it's a little bit different. I'm like kind of anti-talent, I found out. Because when I enter the room, people look at me and they think, what an asshole. And I don't know if my bad charisma is a little gone in the meantime, but I experienced that a lot when I was younger. And I found out it's a difficult start, but it really makes you work hard to change your image and to invest. And if you keep focused and you get to the people and you show them your true face, and you can convince them that you're a good guy and that you can add value, this perception people have in the beginning, that will change. And also it leads to a much deeper connection, because you invest and people feel that.
All right, so you said you don't have that natural charisma, but again, you, as you mentioned earlier, you are perhaps reluctantly, but you're the spokesperson in these videos. You're the host in these videos. And as we talked about, you're going to 104,000 subscribers. So I wonder, what did you learn to be able to be the host in these videos, to be able to be the spokesperson for your company, right? What have you learned? Because from what I found is, we've done speaker training and different things, and I'm very introverted, so I'm not a natural speaker. I've got to do speakers. But what I found is the people, when something comes to you naturally, you're not very good at teaching it, right? You're just like, what's the problem? You go up there, you talk, you know what I mean? It just comes. But when you have to kind of struggle to figure things out or to get it, like, that's when you can really convey it to someone else. That's when something can really make a difference. You really learn it because you've had to struggle through it to get to it. And a lot of company founders, right? I mean, that's Elon Musk now, you see, or a lot of different people, like, it has become a big thing for that company founder to play a prominent role. And a lot of company founders, they might be technocrats or engineers, different things. It doesn't come naturally to them. So what did you learn to not only just, be able to be a spokesperson for your company, but to be, a star in some ways? That's what a content host is. Like, what have you learned?
Well, different things came with that. And one thing maybe that is different in my case, that in Colombia, nobody knows me because my channel is in English and Colombians do not speak English. So I can walk around Colombia and nobody has a clue who I am, because they just see a foreigner, tall, blue eyes. And so I don't have this public attention that usually people that are getting famous in social media will receive. But what I learned, and this is something very interesting with clients. So I have some clients, they literally watched all my videos, and we have now over 300 long format videos, and we have all the shorts. And when people call me and they have me on their phone for the first time, they're like, oh my God, I cannot believe you. I cannot believe it that I'm talking to you on the phone right now. I saw all your videos and it's so great. And this is something new for me. And this is kind of funny because my reality is totally different. I'm just a guy. I'm an entrepreneur, and I try to organize the best trips for foreigners in Colombia. And they see me on the YouTube channels. And when they have me on the phone and they talk to me, they are so impressed. And this is kind of very interesting. But what I feel and what I experienced, people are really interested in those stories. So many of my clients, they want to have dinner with me. So they invite me in Bogota. And when I'm around, we go to a restaurant, and usually we go to better restaurants because my clients are usually high end. And this is very good because I love food. When I was a teenager, I almost became a chef, and I was a cook a lot. So this is a very good side effect of being a YouTuber. And also something very interesting that I learned. So imagine you have some money and you want to have a great trip to Colombia, and the trip costs you $20,000-$30,000. I always was scared that my clients will be very reluctant to make a bank transfer of $30,000 from like Switzerland or England or the USA to Colombia, because it's still Colombia. Imagine Colombia with this image. I never had an issue. All my clients so far since the beginning, I sent them the account information and they made the wire transfer without hesitance. That was unbelievable. And I think a big part of it was really the YouTube channel, that people had the option to see me in flesh and blood on the YouTube channel and see me talking, and also being very honest, because on the YouTube channel, when I tell about the different destinations, it's not everything always great. I always also talk about the bad stuff. We have problems in Colombia, and not everything is great. Some stuff is really bad. And I tell it right away. I explain to people why it's bad and what's going on. And people really seem to appreciate that, the honesty, and those also converts finally in good business.
That's a great example for, with our marketing in general, but especially with our content and our inbound. Like if you wanted, the ultimate would be, like you said, to become a trusted resource. And to do that, you do have to play it straight with people. Not every product is right for every person, right? And what your marketing and your content should do is help people determine, is this right for me? And if they're not your ideal customer and it's not right for you, the best thing you can do is tell them that. And then you build that trust, and maybe they refer you to someone it is right for. I also like how you mentioned that trust, because, sometimes, like marketers are really stuck and they're like, I need sales, I need this. And so they do cold emailing, which is spam, or cold calling, telemarketing, or, hitting everyone on LinkedIn, whatever it is. They feel like I need to do this for the numbers. And so as we talked about kind of before, that content inbound approach, it can take longer. Like it took longer for you to scale up to those subscribers. But if you've got it hitting, and if you've got it well, and if you're really serving customers with it, wow, what trust. I mean, like you said, wiring $30,000 to some guy in Colombia, that is trust. That is, I think, the ultimate win and a great example of showing how well, like this approach could work. All right, let's take a look at one more lesson. A good leader stands up for their team, and you learned this from Heidi Schlegel back when you were in the finance industry. How did you learn this from Heidi?
Yeah, Heidi Schlegel, she was that was awesome. When in Switzerland, we have a dual education system. So that means you make either apprenticeship, 2, 3, or 4 years, depending on the profession, like becoming a chef, carpenter, or banker, or you go to university and you study. In Switzerland, we only have a quota of like between 23 and 26% of academics that study at the university. The rest are all, it's like a technician that you start with the company, and then 4 days a week you work within the company, and then once a week you go to school, and then you get finally your degree. So as already mentioned, I almost became a chef. So I went cooking in a hotel and restaurant, and I found out cooking at home is very different to cooking professionally, because it's such a tough profession. So I became a banker. I started with Credit Suisse, then it was called Schweizerische Kreditanstalt in 95. And at the first station, I made 6 stations in 3 years. And the first station was the on the Paradeplatz, the main building at the cashier. And the second station was the stock exchange. And the way people deal with each other in the stock exchange department, it's quite rough. So people are making fun of each other, and there is lots of swearing and lots of masculinity and testosterone. Not many women are working there. So I was in the mid office, and I always had to go upstairs to the upper floor to the traders to get the slips, some papers that were the trades they made, to process them. So always when I went up there, talking a little bit to the guys, and they made fun, I made fun. And one day I went up there to get my slips, and there was a new guy on the desk and having his feet on the desk. And he was looking at me and asking me, "Hey, you young guy, have you been to the military already?" And I was 16 years old. So I said, No, it's too early for me. I still have to become 18, and then I will see what I'm going to do in the army. Because in Switzerland, the army is compulsory, and it's a militia, so everybody has to go. And besides work, you also go to the army. And then I looked at him and said, "Yeah, but when I look at you, you also still have to go to the army." And he didn't say anything anymore with his mouth open. So, and then I said, okay, I have to work. I have to take my slips and go down to process them. Okay, bye guys. And then 1 week later, we had drinks in the department, and the department head of the whole mid office was Hedi Schlegel. She was the managing director over there. And she was not only a woman, she was like, for decades, the only leader I met that I really thought, that's a real leader. She was so good. Everybody loved her, and she was such a person of respect, and she was so relaxed. She was so cool, a real idol. And she called me over and said, hey, Frank, I had some complaint about you. Last week, you were talking to a guy, it's one of the traders, and he told me everything that happened. And do you actually know who you talked to? And I said, no, sorry, I don't know. I have no idea who I talked to. So he said, yeah, there was Adi. Walter Berchtold. He was head of trading and later become chief private banking and was a board member. Big guy. And then she explained me, yeah, he told me everything, that you have been a little bit rude with him. And you know what I did? I just laughed at him. and she said, okay, don't care. Nothing will happen. Everything is good. Everything is solved. Don't worry. And yeah, this was a big lesson that leadership is more than just taking the big salary and being the boss, taking over responsibility and taking care of your team and protecting your team. That is part of the work you have to fulfill. And yeah, I never will forget this story, because this is also something as a young kid I learned, and this just I kept this with me.
Yeah, I mean, what a great lesson. You were 16. I mean, that just blows my mind. You were 16 and working in like a major investment bank. I mean, no kidding, you weren't like perfect there. Like, wow. But I mean, what good for her for sticking up here. I think that's a great lesson for anyone listening, to be like, okay, how can we look out for, maybe they're not going to be 16, but the young people in our organizations, the interns, that, people just starting. Well, I mean, something I found is they don't always know we are so used to the operational ways of business or office works. They don't know some of the simple niceties, or some of the simple, even like how to use an Outlook calendar invite or something. Just kind of taking their hand and helping them with a few of those things can go a long way. But another thing I want to ask you about leading a team. I mean, I mentioned vision earlier. It seems like for a founder, for a CEO, for a small company, it's so important not just to have that vision, but to communicate it out to the team. And I wonder how you communicate that vision to the team. It's just such a key part of leadership. For example, when I've written about this before, I talked about it's important to clearly communicate a value proposition internally. So a lot of times with the value proposition, we're very focused on the overall value proposition of the company, but making sure that everyone understands the value proposition of that campaign or offer, that specific thing we're wanting to get them to do. Not only the value proposition to what it will mean for the customer, but what will it mean for them individually? Like in a bigger organization, it might be, what does it mean for every different department? But in a smaller company, it's just, what does it mean for that individual? And that's, how do we motivate them and get them on board? For some people, it's, money, but there's other ways too. So for you, Frank, like, how do you now, we mentioned earlier that vision you have for what you want to do with your company. How do you now communicate that out to your team? Considering too, especially as we mentioned, some of those people that are on your team are interns. They're fairly young, like you were when you started.
Yeah, that's true. So the way I do it, I talk directly to the whole team. Every 2 weeks, we have a company meeting, and we always have different topics I'm talking about. For example, when I went to a trip to new destinations, I explained what I saw, what was good, what was bad, what's the problem. I'm really honest about that. I talk about the finances of the company. When we struggle, I tell people why we struggle, what's the problem. And I always encourage the people to ask questions, and this is always so satisfying. Some interns, they're really interested, and then they start asking questions. Some they're really scared. This is also a cultural thing in Colombia. It's very hierarchical, but some, they really take the occasion and they ask and ask and ask, and then we have a discussion. And I always motivate all my team and the interns ask questions. It's a big opportunity. Usually 6 months with me or with us, and I always tell them, look, this is a big opportunity for you. You have access to me on those team meetings. If you have any questions, if you do not understand something, ask, because this is a lifetime chance. You don't have this somewhere else probably, because it's not just I'm the head of a small company, but I have a lot of experience. I have a different culture, and this also plays within. And this is how we communicate. And also, I tell my interns, look, if you have any questions or problems, or you need a free day or whatever, you have my WhatsApp number, text me or call me. We have direct communication 360. And usually in the beginning, the interns are all very shy because they're young and they don't have the experience. And what they learn from is how we within the team communicate to each other. So my team members, and especially my head of digital marketing, Anna Maria, she has a very dark humor, and she's also very direct. And sometimes she makes hard jokes on me also during their calls, because I also make jokes. And this relaxes the whole situations and shows especially the interns, the trust we have within the team, within the company, the way we communicate, that we communicate with respect, but that we are also open to jokes, and that we are very honest and direct. Because this is the corporate culture I implemented and I maintain. And my staff, big thanks to them, they were able to adapt to leave their zone of comfort and their culture in that aspect, and adjust and adapt this corporate culture we are running at my company. And this is awesome. So this is how we communicate, and this works really great.
That's great. So from all the conversations we've had, Frank, from your lessons, from your stories, we talked about many different things about what it means to be a marketer. So if you had to break it down just directly, in your opinion, what are the key qualities of an effective marketer?
I think the analysis part is so important, that you understand who is your target audience and how can you reach them with, and how, what will be the message and what will it do with your potential clients. I think the execution, everything, this is also important, but I think the first step, the analysis, this is where we need to invest the most time and the most energy, because this is the fundament of everything. So for marketers, I think if you're not able to combine the company goals, where you need to go and what clients you need to talk to, you will not be able to develop all the rest of the strategy and the implementation and execution. So to me, analysis and understanding the core of it, that's absolute key.
Well, thank you for sharing your understanding of marketing with us today, Frank, and your career journey, your entrepreneurial journey. Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm very happy to share everything I learned with everybody.
And thanks to everyone for listening.
Thank you for joining us for How I Made It in Marketing with Daniel Burstein. Now that you've gotten inspiration for transforming yourself as a marketer, get some ideas for your next marketing campaign from Marketing Sherpa's extensive library of free case studies at marketingsherpa.com. That's marketingsherpa.com.